哎，雨停了，哎，
又下了，
我劳哎，
我就知道没有这么容易停的啦。我比较喜欢开半夜车，晚上比较凉爽，车子又少，也就不用提心吊胆啊，谁会突然那边从挤过来那边割过去的，整条马路都是你的。晚上真是个不同的世界，跟白天大不相同啊！不要以为过了半夜就是黑麻麻、凹噜噜的世界。我现在就在罗宾森顿，街灯大放光明照得连个鬼影都看不见。可是街上却是静悄悄的，很难得有辆车会经过嘞。你甚至可以把车停在路中央也不用担心有人拼命去跑你。同样的建筑，同样的街道，一过了半夜就变成另外一个世界了。
这座小庙毫不起眼，历史不太久。根据土地局的资料显示，大概只有71年。建筑很一般，香火并不旺盛，可是它的位置却刚好就在商业区的范围以内。在市区重建的计划底下，有一些历史价值比它更高、条件更好的庙都被拆掉。以面积来看，这是一座小庙，除了主神像之外，在庙的四周围还有很多的小神像，真摆着那么多。这是本地小庙宇的一个特色，一间庙有很多不同的神 ，under one roof。我仔细研究过这些小神像，也拿给专家做评估。从历史、从雕工来看，都没什么价值，我们可以完全不考虑它们。我想大家一定很想知道，为什么我会建议保留这座小庙？因为它的主神像，每一间庙都有一个主要的神，这个神叫姑娘妈，样子看不出来吧？他其实是一个洋人。
live come 我们又
Hello.
回来了。
Okay. So very appropriate start to a session that is called Creative Chaos. Yeah. So I don't know how much you guys who, you know, all the audience who have joined us just now, how much you've heard, but very importantly, one of the message that I shared just now was because, you know, we want this to be an interactive session. So rather than just having the panel discuss among ourselves, we actually would like to have a discussion with the audience. So for those of you who are tuning in, please, you know, leave whatever questions or messages you want that you have for the panel in Facebook, and we will have a short Q&A towards the end of the session, okay? Based on the questions that are asked. Yeah. So like all innovations and breakthrough ideas, there are a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainties. Like just now, like, you know, we started and then suddenly, you know, we had to sort out some technical difficulties. So it is definitely not something for the faint-hearted. And artists and innovators very often fall into this category of the brave heart, who constantly challenges existing boundaries and expand everyone's understanding and definition of the world that we are in. And actually, practice is home to many of these individuals who have like all these wild and insane ideas and who are always game to be part of the adventure. Like, for instance, you guys saw the video just now that was played before the session, figuring out how to fulfill the vision, have a projection move when the set is transforming, before, and all this before the era of tracking technology. Yeah. And also, like, you know, deciding to let audience to decide how much they actually wish to pay for watching a live performance. And like tonight, you know, using new digital platform to conduct a non-stop 55 hours online streaming. I mean, like, how crazy is that, right? So today I'm actually very happy to have with us some very special guests. All of us actually have something in common. We have all been part of practice journey of the constant exploration and reinvention of our craft. And we have also actually worked extensively overseas and in commercial projects. So without further ado, I will introduce 我们今天有我们首先 our practice buddy actually Lucy 我们的 first generation resident director 我们的第一任驻场导演啊，然后现在在深圳任教在深圳大学，然后也是一个非常受国内观众和国内行业里面非常尊敬的一个戏剧导演。然后呢 ，Hello， 然后我们还有 Gabriel 呢，在我印象当中，他永远都是一个小朋友啊，因为他是我们第一届的 TTP 的那个 volunteer program 的 volunteer， 然后也是我们成功忽悠从一个 volunteer 变成一个 professional 的一个 lighting designer。我相信在行业里面的人也非常熟悉他，因为他参与了很多那个大家就是很熟悉的一些项目，例如之前Shakespeare in the Park， 然后呢还有就是 National Day Parade， 今年 National Day Parade， 然后其实他现在也很活跃啊，然后都非常抢手的一个 lighting designer。Hello Gabriel。Hello，
大家好。从上贼船变贼船上的一个海岛而是。
然后呢，我们还有雷混，现在他的背景很亮哦，因为他在世界的另一端，他在纽约。雷混是我们TTP when the first commercial project that TTP did, she was the PM, and then after that she stopped doing commercial projects and then she went back to non-profit.
Happy 55th theater practice. Hi everyone.
Yeah, Lei Hun is now the production manager of the New Group, which is an off-Broadway not-for-profit theater company in New York City. So she is all the way in New York City, and she made a very conscious effort to wake up early for us. Yeah, she is like all made up and like done up
for a good cause.
For a good cause. 然后还有就是我们有Li BB. I call her the girl who returned. 对，她是从国外回来新加坡寻根的。 的艺术工作者 and she is currently the technical director for TTP.
Hi.
还有 last but not least 我们的 SMQ 我们的keeping us in check, making sure that we are not too chaotic. Cecilia 现在 TTP 的 producer and PM, but 其实他从实践开始出去晃了一圈，最终还是回到实践，所以大家都可以理解就是实践的魅力在哪里哈。等一会儿可能 Cecilia 可以说一下。好，我们先开始吧，我们的那个 session 哈，本来是有1个半小时啊，现在可能有1个小时的时间，可是我们看一看吧，因为之前的那个 session 也是迟结束啊，所以我们如果聊得很兴起的话，我们也可以 extend 哈，对哈 ，Cecilia。
问 SM， 问一下 SM。
好 ，OK， 所以我们先可能谈一下吧，就是 when we got the topic innovation, yeah, innovation and the arts, and so what does innovation actually mean? Because when people think about innovation, it's something that first comes to mind is anything that's technological based, yeah. So maybe we go around and talk about what does innovation mean to everyone. Yeah, who wants to start?
我们从小的开始吧。
哇，又来这招。
不要紧张，大家。
Innovation, I think, it constitutes a new way of thinking lah, for me lah. So at least in terms of so it doesn't need to be like in terms of process. It can just be a sort of a thinking lah, like why do you want to continue going down the same path? Rather than that, maybe you come up with another way to maybe achieve the same thing or not lah. So to me, innovation is just that change in mindset 咯。第一个讲是最容易的，因为没有人讲过。
没有，后面的人就全部讲 I agree.
I agree.
I also perfect answer.
Yeah, that's innovation for me 啦。
我觉得 innovation 给每个人的意义不太一样，因为其实我们大家全部都是不同背景嘛，所以可能大家都分享一下innovation. What does innovation actually mean to you?
So I just want to share a story. Recently, a friend of mine here, she interviewed for a executive director position for a smaller not-for-profit theater company. And during her interview, she told me that they didn't even ask her, what skills do you have? How good are you with, finance skills and all that? So it's very interesting to me because, all of us try our best to be really good. Like as a production manager, I try to be very good at my Excel, try to be very good at my schedule template, my budget template. But that is a given. You have the job. Those are basic skills that you need to possess anyway, right? So for me, innovation, how I innovate to better myself, especially during this pandemic, we have all the time in the world, right, to pause. I think about, I do some rethinking about how I do certain things, right? And I think about how to reform how certain things are done, to change the way things are done. And in the process, the goal, right, is to reinvent myself so that when theater returns full time, I can, what can I bring to the table? So that to me is, innovation. Who agree? Anybody can just say agree also.
I agree.
So we can end the session early, is it? Because everybody agree already.
No.
Yeah. Well, let me share a little bit, because to me, when I hear people say innovations, they tend to cite geared towards technology, high machinery, and how that's going to further their work. How it's going to create and sculpt their work. But to me, I think it's more of how it puts together. I think, like we talk about 创意 and 创新. I think it has to be together, because without the creativity, you cannot really think about what you want to what can you create out from, innovating your ideas. So when people always brought up this word innovative and then they start, or innovation, they start talking about technology, I get very freaked out. And honestly, I'm a very old school person. But I think there's a beauty of being old school because you can't find it. Not that you can't find it, but you don't find the texture and the quality of it in a lot of the technology. Like I remember my old lighting professor always say that, you can push button from one cue to another cue, but what is your emotion there? The versus of pushing button then bringing up the fader is two different things. It's the same thing as flying a fly bar using a rope versus pushing a button, letting the machine do the calculation, how heavy this unit is going to weigh, how much time it takes to come down, versus putting the rope manually with a hand, feeling together with the show, what is on stage. I think, so I think that is also the beauty of it. So when people talk about innovation and then they start thinking about technology, I get a bit, let's stop there. Let's think back a little bit. Because, old school is not a bad thing, but, as an old school, I also try to look into what the technology can help me in terms of the work that I'm doing. So it's also a way of making it differently, how that's going to reflect my work and how that can create and make it to branch out a little bit more so that we get a little bit more variety in terms of the things that we are creating. Yeah. Anybody agree? Yay!
I agree. I absolutely agree. Because 很多时候 like sometimes when everything is like programmed and so on, you lose that feel because the magic of live theater is live, right? And the thing is sometimes you feel the audience in the house, and depending on how the audience is that day, certain things needs to change or needs to adapt to that live audience of that day. So when everything's already like sort of strictly programmed, it's all about pressing a button, you lose that sort of magic touch sometimes.
Right, because you might have a moment, a great scene that the audience really applaud, and then and if you suddenly push the button and the next cue go because of the timing, and then you kind of lose the relationship between the audience and the performance. So yeah, I agree with you, Wendy.
Yeah, we'll come back to that about how sometimes old school is the new school. Yeah, but let's also maybe have a listen to what Cecilia and our practice buddy Uzi has in terms of like what are their thoughts about innovation.
舞蹈你要先讲吗？
好啊。其实对于我来说，我永远因为我是导演嘛，所以我永远在想，就是你要用一个什么方式去讲一个故事。在之前蛮长的时间之内，我一直在做，每年都会做1-2个原创性的东西，但是越做到后来，我就觉得，阻力和压力越大。我觉得这其实可能就是一种，你对于一种创新，对于一种新的讲故事形式的一种需求吧，然后造成你不愿意用过往的一种方式，不愿意用过往的一种技术手段，以及不愿意用之前用过的一些舞台技术去讲述故事。我觉得总是在寻找一种新的讲述方式，在寻找一种新的技术方式、技巧方式来重新讲故事，所以就变成你如果对自己有这种要求之后，就会其实创作的压力其实是越来越大的。我这2年一想到要重新做一个全新的原创的东西的时候，我总是脑子里头第一个画面，以及我怎么用一个什么样的语境和用一种什么样的态度去讲这个故事，会变成一件最为难的事情。我觉得只要我确定了这个方向之后，其实做一个新的演出会很快。然后关于一些技术的运用的话，我会觉得这些年当然我们现在的舞台的技术越来越多，手段越来越丰富，但是我觉得 一方面是大大的提高了我们的一个表现力，但同时又带来一个问题，就是这个技术它本身就带着一种限制性，而这种技术最后它就会变成对于我们的想象，我们慢慢的就会变成在这个技术的框架之下去进行想象。我其实有点质疑这个东西，就是慢慢的我们的想象会不会被技术所制约？这是我最近在思考的一个问题。就是这些。
喂，是我吗？是到我吗？
是。
对，我非常同意，无锡非常同意。那I guess I can speak from the position of leading a producing team and a production team in the theater practice right now. So a bit of backstory, because this department didn't used to be a combined department. When I decided to join the company full-time, because a lot of people thought I was full-time for a very long time, but actually no. I just joined the company about 3 years ago. And when Tianhong and I spoke, I wanted to join the two departments because I think the reason why we do any show is always because we want to talk about a certain message, a certain story, a certain issue that we want to discuss. So that's usually from the producer's point of view, right? When a project is being conceived. And then a lot of times when it goes into the production part of things, I always observe there's a little gap here between the idea and the idealization part. So that's why when there was a reorganization in the company, we decided to just merge these two to make sure what the original idea was is being kept true. So I think any type of ways to make the presentation or the performance true to its intention at the start is good innovation to me.
Yeah, I think what innovation means to different people from the very sort of very sharing that we had. It means very different things, It's the same as like if you go to anybody on the street and you ask, so what does art means to you, or how important is art to you? You actually get very different answers. But I think, but from what I hear, it's actually one thing is quite consistent, which is you don't innovate for the sake of innovating, right? Like when we talk about innovation, at the end of the day, it is to support and bring value to the work that we are doing, and
it doesn't matter whether it's commercial or non-commercial.
Exactly, yeah. So it's actually, at the end of the day, the focus is 我们要做的这个东西，它所有周边的，你不管是用新的科技也好，或者是用一个新的那个思想，就思考方式也好，或者就是你重新去重组一个团队来支持你这个项目也好。At the end of the day, it is the product that is the key. It's the creative product that is the main thing, and everything else, including all the innovation that goes behind it, is something that supports and sort of bring extra value to the creative product. So the next question, like all of you are one of the reasons when I was approached to say, hey, who should we get together to talk about this topic? I said I want to have people who have worked with many different sort of companies or like with very varied backgrounds. And so I'm actually interested to also hear from you guys, because personally as well, being having worked in Singapore, in other countries, and like worked in like non-profit and commercial, I feel like sometimes there is a different approach to the creative process. Different objectives are in place, right? When we are in a sort of a different setup, or when we are working for non-profit or for commercial, there is sometimes there's a different objective to the creative process. So I just want to open the floor, for sharing, based on all your experiences. How do your experience, like, is innovation like, or the creative process, in the creative process, is innovation like a conscious effort? And the different projects that you are involved in, the approach to the creative process, how different is it? Is there a different approach because it's a different culture? Like, for instance, the Americans versus Asian, is there a different approach? Or if it's commercial and non-profit, is there a different approach? So I feel like, let's just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we should get Lei Hun to start.
I'm ready.
你在美国几年啦? You have been in the States for how long?
2007. So about 13 years. Yeah. So as a working production manager in Singapore, right, transitioning into the US production managing, it's an eye-opener, and it's the perfect situation for me to innovate myself or re-innovate. Is there such a word, re-innovate?
Yes,
so one of the things, you agree? So I remember being, when I was a production manager in Singapore, right, it's a very top-down hierarchical structure for me, right? Everything goes back up to the PM. The PM is like up there, you have your lighting, your set, your scenic, your sound, costumes, everybody. And then you think that, this is how I pictured it in the past. Everything flow back to you, right? This way. Then I went to Boston for grad school, and I had to do my thesis, right? And I came to the realization that the top-down, PM top-down structure is not the best structure. It's not the best way to work to support what Cecilia said, the final intent of the show, right? So I learned, and it's in my thesis, that the PM is actually the nucleus of it's in the middle of the whole process. I know director may disagree, designers may disagree, but hear me out. So instead of a top-down, I feel that as a production manager, I'm actually in the middle of this ring, and I'm surrounded by the creative designers, the directors, marketing, box office, the crew, anybody, right? So, and then the arrow doesn't go this way, right? The arrow is flat, right? It goes this way, right? But it doesn't only go this way, like they are reporting to me. It's a two-way arrow. There's a lot of communication back and forth. Why? Because I'm in the middle. I need to know what's going on so that I can then communicate, right, and transfer information to other people who needs the information, right? I'm not putting myself in the center of the universe, but in the communication flow, I guess. The PM is critical. So I learned about that as a more effective model for me, and also I'm so far have been fortunate to be surrounded by people who are really good at their job, right? So if you're here, you're listening to them, they're your peers. And that's what theater is about, right? Collaboration and how people come together to do something towards a common goal. The other thing I also learned is that as the PM, it's very crucial and it's very useful for me to be involved as early in the process as possible. I tend to think that as a production manager, I'm part of the production team, right? I don't care what the designers are talking about, what they're dreaming, but I learned that I should care. I should have a seat at that table early in the process when they are dreaming, not for me to say, no, cannot, no, please, where got money to do this thing, no, not that, but more as like a fly on the wall, right? And listening, and by listening, it helped me to understand what they are trying to get to at the end. So the ultimate goal is still the same, to get to realize the final artistic intent. So that I find is very critical. Otherwise, the old me, the Singapore me, is a lot about check boxes, right? Production schedule, check. Production schedule version 13, check. It's not that. I learned to stop being a task master, I learned to appreciate the creative process more. And because I'm part of the creative process, believe it or not, the PM is also part of the creative process. We have to be.
Yeah, okay. It becomes a collaboration.
Yeah.
And I think collaboration is very important. I mean, to
we have a question
process.
here. from the audience. Caroline. Caroline is one of the stage manager in Singapore. Some of you may know her. So her question was directed to me, but I think it's also quite related to what Lei Hun just mentioned. She asked, have you ever felt conflicted in situations with being on both producing and production team? Because I mentioned the benefit of combining the team, right? So are there any challenges? I think if both the producing team and the production team members have aligned values in terms of what their roles in the team is, and being a great team member. Because we have all worked, I believe, we have all worked in teams where they put themselves before the work. Yeah. So when that happens, then it's that is the main challenge. The challenge is actually not the work. The challenge is the person or the people.
The personnel,
Yeah. If I want to say, if I would point out the challenge here of a combined team, I think is aligning values and the people. But once the value, like we all know, we are all heading for the same goal, then we bring the tools to the table, and then I think that makes the work great, I feel. Yeah. It's something related to what Lei Hun also said, because like we are in the middle of everything.
Yeah, I have a friend, Kenny. I think everyone know. Sorry to quote you, Kenny. Not quote, like paraphrase. And I agree with him. You know, he said the work is easy. You know, the work is easy to do. It's it's working with your team. I think that is the highlight.
Yeah, because actually our work, yes, we are here to solve problems and to provide solution. But as we work as a producer or as a PM or a designer, a lot of times, 50% or more of the time is spent on managing the people. And that's the chaos, actually.
Actually, I have a question now, because like we said that, we a lot of the time it's about how do we bring solutions to problems, right? And it's actually like innovation is that as well, solving problems, bring new solutions to problems. And do y'all feel that it gets easier with time and practice? Like, is it easier? And because like Uxi was also mentioning just now, 就是刚刚也提到说，其实在每次做一个新作品的时候，就会一直去想说有什么新的一些方式、一些新的手段去呈现一些想法。你就是 do you all feel like it gets easier, or actually no, it doesn't get easier?
I feel like, okay, so from a design point of view, right? There are always tools, you have your own box of tricks that you can always pull out to do a certain effect or create a certain atmosphere, right? And then typically, what I really don't like a lot of that is that you get type gamers, this kind of designer, or you're recognized for a certain kind of style which I actually do not enjoy lah. And when people say, oh, it's so you, it actually doesn't add value to the work lah. I feel like, because then you're just bringing your version of an interpretation to the story and not tackling the story itself lah. So going back to what's the question just now? Going back to what was the question?
Does it get easier with time? Like
yeah. So it actually
exercising
gets harder,
the brain to innovate.
Yeah, it actually gets harder because like once you use trick one, then you got one less trick to use already. So as you create more and more, there's actually less for you. I'm not saying less, but you have if you are comfortable with using back the same thing, then obviously it's not a problem lah. But for me as a designer, when I try to create something that I don't want people to be able to identify that 这个是他做过的东西， it actually gets harder because then you have more for people to compare against. Yeah, so actually for me it's harder lah. So in that sense, but you sort of develop that library, and it's a good thing to fall back on when you're say rush for time or whatever. But like when you're trying to create something new, that is actually I feel that's actually harder lah.
I think it's easier or harder both ways. It's easier if you're familiar with it, and then you can chop, you got it done. But it's harder when you don't have we always talk about people, money, skill set. When you come to that, then it's difficult. It depends on where you are as well. So you might not have the skill set, the right person to do certain things. Then you start to explore different ways. So there's really no easier or harder way on my end, I felt.
I just want to say, sorry.
Sorry, Lei Hun, go ahead.
Just very quickly, people ask me, right, what do you enjoy about your work? Which aspect of your work do you enjoy about production management, right? So the only thing I can think of is because it's not every day is not the same, right? So does it get easier? Every day is not the same. And I say that with a smile, really. And that's what drives me to want to be a production manager for as long as I can, take the subway to work. Because, it's just not the same. It doesn't get easier or harder, but just not the same. That is a delight for me.
Yeah. I was going to prompt Wuxi just now, but I was very delighted that Lei Hun jumped in and started to take over the mic, because when we started the session, she was like, I don't have things to say. Then now she started, she cannot stop.
Cannot stop.
Very good. So
Sorry,
I was going to prompt 导演，因为我刚刚是想要 prompt 导演，因为你刚刚提到嘛，就是在做新作品的时候，就是你会去想说一些新的方式、手段或者一些新的技术，然后 so 你觉得就是刚刚我问到的，就是这个过程，这个过程对你来说，它是一个就让你越来越觉得说，哎呀，就得心应手，还是就在你每一次不同尝试之后，你就发现，哎，你现在手上有那么多玩具啊，你都会用啊，然后越来越得心应手，还是你会觉得说现在太多东西了，然后反而弄到你很杂乱，就是你的那个思路变成很杂，反而你就觉得很难做决策或者怎么样，所以你可以分享一下吗？而且你跟我们说过，你明年想要做一个你就是完全就是自己一个，就完全没有任何外在影响或者任何人来 influence 你的一个作品，就是希望就是跟着你的心去走，对吧？所以想听一下你对这个事情。
因为对于我来讲，这件事情就是看你有多少资源，就是你的那个戏资源越多，其实你会越麻烦，因为资源多，你要考虑的东西就会比较多，一个演出。而且其实我慢慢的发觉，我慢慢的感觉就是，其实有时候资源越多，你自己的受到的第一个限制会比较多，第二个就是连技术限制都会比较多。而你有的时候因为你资源一多之后，你慢慢就会发现你一定要在大剧场啊，或者是你一定要做一个环境，然后你会发现你能调动的东西会变得越来越少，它反而没有一个当你资源很少的时候，你可以天马行空去进行一些想象和进行一些尝试，然后对于我来讲，我会有这样的感觉，就是你肯定都会有这样的问题，就是你越往后走，我想任何一个创作人都是不会安于现状的，就是他不会想去重复的。而当你只要有了一颗不会想去重复的心，你的所有的创作都会是非常非常辛苦的。我总在就是现在那些新的一些导演，我总在跟他说，我总是不停的教唆他们说，我说你想什么就去做什么。他们说这个会不会有问题？我说没问题。 我说你们现在最可贵的就是无知者无畏，就是你们现在什么都没有，所以你们想什么就去做什么，然后做得非常的开心。我说就是这个时候最容易做出一些东西来。然后你其实随着你的创作一直往后走，你的经验越来越丰富，你看到的东西越来越多，然后你做过的东西越来越多之后，其实一定是会形成一种束缚的。然后有了这个束缚之后，你就想要去突破，而这个突破的过程，我个人感觉是非常辛苦的。所以我经常想要，就像我跟你讲的，我隔一段时间我就想做一个，哎呀，负担非常轻的戏，我想做一些奇奇怪怪的东西，就是完全由着自己的想法来进行一些创作。而对于导演来讲，他最麻烦的事情就是，其实因为我们是个集体创作嘛，你这种协作性总是很强的。你一个画家，你有一个感受，你很容易就会画出来；你一个音乐家，你很容易就可以演奏出来。然后我们这个比较麻烦的就是，你要把你的想法和你脑子里头的画面不停地跟人沟通，而且每一个都是非常有性格的艺术家。我要去说服 Gabriel， 我要跟他去谈，我说我的想法是怎么样的，我说Gabriel 这个对了或者这个不对，然后我要去跟服装说，我要去跟布景说，然后我要跟每一个演员说，然后我还要想办法让所有的演员把我想的那个东西放出来，所以说真的是一个比较麻烦的工作，我觉得。
好，其实刚刚吴曦导演也提到，就是其实有时候资源多也是一个束缚哈，然后有时候你还想说，哎呀，其实给我少一点东西更好，我还可以用其他自己更创意的方式去实现，对吧？然后我觉得我们都走过就跟实践一起成长或者一起走出来的嘛，然后其实呢，实践可能资源从来不会多，简单来讲，就从来都不会有钱，就不够钱，每一次都是不够钱，所以就更要挑战我们自己，说怎么去创新，对吧？怎么去用一些新的方式，去实现我们的那个创作想要达到的这个目的，所以。我们就回想一下，因为刚刚讲了很多，就是创新是什么一些，可是我觉得实践本来就是刚刚好像我也提到，实践就是一个我们经常会鼓励大家 step out of 我们的 comfort zone 的一个地方，就是他经常会挑战我们，而且我记得我在实践的那几年，建宏挑战了我很多次，然后让我也很快速的成长，所以。经常就时间会让我们去挑战我们自己，然后 always try something different. 所以 is there any stories anybody wants to share about, your time in theater practice where, where you had to put aside, what you like firmly believe in or your preconceived notions. And, after you have done that, was it a good outcome? Did it surprise you?
I mean, me again, sorry. Geez, so my first show and also my last show, because I left for the States, right? With theater practice is the first production of 天人就回来, right? And then I was like, when Jian Hong approached me, I don't know whether I shared with Jian Hong, but the biggest thing on my head was like, I must read the script in Chinese. How do you know? I've never done a Chinese language production. Well, right? But it was something that I challenged myself to do, right? So I did. I did the show, of course. End of story. But so I took up the production, and from the get go, right? I was supported by a group of people who really enjoy their work, were very good at their work. Hock Ho, I must mention Hock Ho. The SM.
Is he online? Is he online?
I don't know. I must mention.
He will be online on Sunday at 9 a.m.
No, he's supposed to be online now as our audience.
Okay.
Somebody call Hock Ho.
He got everything. He had everything under control. So I had a mix of crew who always work for theater practice, and I have my own friends / crew who work for me during that show. Tanny, at Lindy was doing props. But I had such a good time, you know, because it's not about just, I mean, first of all, it's important that the people I was surrounded with, are all about making the best work, putting it on stage, right? And they care about doing the best work. But more, I think what made it even more enjoyable, most enjoyable, is that how they care about the people that they are making the work with, you know? So by the time the show is up and playing, the last thing on my mind was, how am I going to tackle this Chinese script? So
Did you put
I'm very,
handpainting in your script?
No, I don't remember what I did, but it was, huh? What did you say?
很多人都有这样的经历啊，我感觉很多人这样抱怨过的。
Yeah. 剧本，我记得之前 Emma 用也是要来演我们的中文戏。
很多人都有，
Because I mean, everything starts with a script. That's what you are told. You learn, right? But at the end, for Tiana, the script is just it's the last thing that I have to worry about. You know, because I'm surrounded by very supportive people.
所以现在中文有没有好一点？雷婚
可以啦，我都上台了，现在可以。It's that obstacle that you place in front of you, which is not an obstacle. You know, it's in your head, right? Yeah.
所以我们从现在开始，全部人用中文。
哎呦，好的，可以。
为了离婚。
为了离婚。
为了你。
Yeah, so that's my theater practice story.
Well, if you speak from the past, then I will speak from the present. I guess everyone is in the same situation with COVID around us now. So we opened our main season in March this year. It was meant to be a 26 show run, Simalu 2020. And Simalu is a promenade theater where 11 stories happens in 11 locations around the buildings and within the building. And then this thing came and we have to close after the second show. And then everyone like panicked. I have to bring everything in the office back home, right? Work from home. Like really, most of us in the office work on with desktop, and then no laptop. We have to like carry the desktop home, bring the whole server home. It's like manic panic. But then we very quickly went into a state where we have to question ourselves. So do we still continue to do what we planned? And by that we mean, because we were supposed to have a festival in August, a whole month long, with 3 main stages and a couple of workshops and activities. Then because when it happened, then we have to wait for the government to tell us like every 2 to 3 weeks. At first it was every Friday they seem to make some sort of announcement about what's the current state, right? Then we were like, okay, now can how many people, now can what time go out, that kind of things. Then I was like, but if we need to wait for the government to tell us how we can live our life, then how do production go ahead? Because you know when we work on productions, it's months ahead when we do planning, sometimes years ahead. So it's like, if we have no answer and we have to wait for someone to tell us how to live our life, then how do we continue? So we just like, okay, I just heck care. We just assume everything is going to be online already. We don't, I won't call it the new normal. That is just the way it has to be, law. It has to be like that. Then we don't give us any other options. Then we just reinvent and went for it. I think at that point when we decided, okay, let's go for it, it was a very big relief on my part. Then I can like, okay, I can do it now. I can just plan. Because if not, they have to plan like plan A, plan B, plan C, hybrid, don't know, hybrid this, hybrid that. We're like, how to hybrid so many things, right? Then at that point, because previously the departments here are quite clearly divided, like the communications and marketing, and then we have the administration and operation, and then producing and production. And for a normal show, the show is usually heavy on the producing and production side when it comes to making the show. then now the stage is on communications channel. It's on Facebook, Zoom, Skype. Now the stage is on comms, not on production. The entire game is just different. And then who builds the stage? Who builds the thing that's supposed to go on the stage? Everything just fell on the comm team overnight. Then we were like, okay, everyone jump in. We built our own ticketing system. We built our own stage. We work with IT technology creatives, and then we started to build our own things. So I guess at that point was no choice because we didn't want to wait. We wanted to go ahead with what we wanted to do. So I think that is the present. I mean, it's still present. That's why we are here on Skype on this 55 online thing, because annually we have this gala event where we do a bit of fundraising. It's supposed to be a one day, a very chill, drink tea, drink a bit of wine, raise a bit of fun, kind of having a bit of fun with like meeting people sort of thing. Then it turns into this 55 hours marathon. Yes. So yes, innovation. So that's the present. The rest?
Well, I can speak a little bit about one of the projects that I was working on, right? So I was working on the National Day, so a huge ethic organization. Everything moves slowly, right? In terms of decisions having to clear several tiers and so on and so on. What happened was that we basically had to develop two plans. One plan for the usual outdoor show, and then one plan that is a scaled down broadcast version. And it basically the job scope doubled overnight in terms of you have to develop two shows at the same time, and only until a certain point where a decision is being cleared by sort of the upper echelons, then you sort of, okay, you can focus on plan B, for example. I guess sometimes it's really born out of necessity one. So in just going back to innovation, right? Like there has been very what you call defined roles in the theatre industry, right? Like now Cecilia, you have your combined version of amalgamation of a certain roles. Similarly, I mean, just from a trend point of view, right? There used to be a lighting designer plus a programmer plus a assistant lighting designer and so on and so forth, right? For the bigger shows. And if you think about it, that was because the lighting designer was focused on the creative aspects of things, and then the programmer will be very vested in all the technical, the translation of creative inputs from the direct designer to computer language, right? Then to control a big rig, lighting rig, whatever. So again, but what technology has also helped us is that actually it is getting easier to interface. Let's say what the lighting designer draws on a plan, right? It is getting very, very easy to have that interface directly into the lighting console itself. So in terms of command and control, you will actually find that next time the lighting designer and the programmer may be the same person, and so whether the programmer upgrades his skills to understand creative stuff, right, and then be able to also execute the creative tasks that a designer would be expected of, or the designer will also need to pick up these programming skills, which are actually getting easier and easier in terms of how it is being interfaced. So now there used to be it used to be, crunching numbers on the console and stuff like that. But now it has come to a point where it's like a touch screen. You touch this light that is drawn on the screen here, and then you can say it is at what intensity. So it's like using your iPad like that. So don't tell me that you don't know how to use that, right? So it's getting more humanized, the technology. And in terms of innovation-wise, the reinvention of the role and actually reimagining what you can do per se is something that everybody in the industry needs to face because this is like disruption. Technology is disruptive so yeah, you have to follow the times otherwise you get swept away with the times yeah just saying.
BB has been very quiet, huh?
I mean, listening, because I was listening to what Gable was talking about. Back to your questions earlier, your preconceived, what were you saying? Something about preconceived in TTP?
Yeah, like how your time with TTP, whether there are any instances where your preconceived notions were challenged, and then you had to sort of you had to throw everything away, and then
well, not really throw everything away. I mean, there are times, I mean, you have a thought, not really of for example, if I were to build a set, if I were to construct a set, and I would talk to the contractor, I have something in mind that this is how I think it can be done to to kind of deliver the design, to make it work. But then the contractor will have a different idea, and then yes and no. Sometimes what they have suggested might not, the end result might not be what it was supposed to be function as. So I mean, that's one part of it. And but then there are also times that they surprise me. I thought, well, what if we do it this way? And they said, well, let's try it other way. So I was like, you have to have open-minded to listen to it, right? I mean, in TTP, of course, you're constantly being challenged by, the artistic part of it. When you have something in mind and then somebody say, how about doing this? So you start exploring and say, oh yeah, maybe this method works better. So for me in TDP, I think every project that I work with, there's no moments that I will say, well, my way is always the way that I wanted, because like you say, Jian Hong always challenge you. And same thing, she still does it. Hi, Jian Hong. She still does the same thing, right? And which is great, because challenge is a part of your learning process. Because if you're not being challenged, you're not asked to think and ask yourself the questions. Say, why do I want to do it my way? Why can't I try other way? So you have to have open-minded. For example, like how what Cecilia said, everything for us is going stream. We go online and digital. And you cannot imagine how crazy it is in the black box. Wires are going all over places. I mean, this is the year that we always tell each other, say, we are all learning, and which is true. So we have to have open-minded, to accept what people tell you and what people suggest to you. Say, hey, you shouldn't do this, but this is the way to do it. Even, I mean, there's no more hierarchy, and there never be hierarchy anyway. But it's like you have to really open up to listen to everybody, because what people are talking, every bit on here, especially in our states, it matters, because there's a lot of communication. If you miss a little part, the whole streaming thing, there will be a pause to it. Then you can move on. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I think especially that whole open-mindedness. I can completely sort of identify with that. We say Jian Hong challenges us all the time, especially PMs. She likes to challenge the PMs.
Yes, she still challenge us.
Because we have to be responsible for realizing the vision. So
they love because she loves PM the most.
他一直 push 说 you have to you know, if you cannot say you cannot do it until you have tried it, right? Unless you try and you fail. If not, if you haven't even tried, then you cannot say, you know, it cannot be done, right? So I feel like 我可能最受益哦 like one of the really sort of things that makes me, you know, miss and think about the time in 实践 was, and appreciate the time in 实践 was how it has, I think that has a lot to do with who I am today, you know, being adaptable and being open, like what Bibi was saying, like being open to different possibilities, because, you know, 实践 sort of forced me to have to, you know, try different ways to approach, or try different approach to the things, and it makes me realize the value of being open, and, you know, being open to different ideas.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar because I forgot I was actually a PM before too, and I get that.
全部我们这边4个 PM， Gabriel 也有做过 PM 好像是吗？
没
有啊，
好像有，对 Tosca
都有，
对，我被丢去日本的时候，无锡，
只有导演没有做过 PM。
Directors love PM 啦 I think。
但确实是啦，我印象中就是现在就跟你们越聊天，我就一直在回想在新加坡做的戏，每一个都疯狂。我跟你说，就你就觉得那个医生季也很疯狂，然后再找那个司马路双尸案也很疯狂，连我们做的雷雨都很疯狂。温迪，本来雷应该相对正常一点，然后我就跟温迪说，我说，哎，我能不能用一些真的古董的家具？然后温迪真的帮我把所有古董家具全都用来了，结果他就很害怕，因为还要换景。然后每天呢，那个
沙发很贵
哦。对啊，那个周朴园会拍桌子，就是会逼那个环喝掉。
我们每次心跳的时候，
我们就拍在那个桌上。我记得那是一张意大利的古董的家具。然后有一天我就去说嘉诚大哥，我说嘉诚大哥你怎么今天拍的不用力呢？然后嘉诚大哥就说喂，温迪跟我说很贵的不能拍。我说那要把戏演对吗？我说那你还是得用力拍。然后他又用力拍，然后温迪又骂嘉诚大哥说哎嘉诚大哥不能拍。然后我就去骂温迪，我说我需要他用力拍，那能怎么办呢？好，然后温迪就垫了一个垫子，然后垫了一个垫子之后，我一拍人家那个很用力拍，但是我又说跟温迪说，我说拍的不够响，我一定要听到很大的响声，然后他就再去想办法。好像每个戏都是很疯狂，但是我觉得在这种疯狂当中，就是有一种真的是不停的推动大家去做新的尝试了。我想这也是实践很重要的实践的精神的一部分吧。
对。然后那时候雷雨导演就说我要一下子是从里面看到外面，一下子是外面看到里面，然后我要把整个屋子翻过来，然后除了这个屋子我还要有一个，因为有侍奉啊他们的那个小屋子嘛，然后我还要怎么样把那个小屋子变出来。所以当时我们也要想，哎呀，要怎么变？然后我们就想到日本那时候有一个很出名的一个综艺节目叫《超级变变变》，然后我们就需要把楼梯换成一个小屋子的场景。然后那时候我还记得我们好像是就是要 rehearse 很多轮那个 scene change， 因为太难了。我记得第一次的时候，
我记得好后的身体是那种很 stretch out 的去推那个楼梯。
我记得维尼是已经 rehearse 到没有气的那种。
就是演员排练完了 ，OK， 现在是后台工作人员的排练时间。
对。
然后我们就在那边一直排练这个东西要怎么做。
对，一直在搬布景。
就是实践，我觉得都让我们就是体会到说 ，everything is possible if you put your mind to it。And
never say no first。
对 ，so even though like now 我们可能现在觉得，哎呀，尤其是可能年初的时候 ，COVID 来的时候，就大家觉得 ，how do we survive, right? Like how do we continue? How is this industry going to pull through this, right? And especially when suddenly arts practitioners are non-essential workers, right? So 就是how like that felt like I think to a lot of people in the industry, and I know for a fact this is not just in Singapore. I think across the board, across the world, everyone in the arts were thinking about, this is an impossible situation. How do we get out of it? And so it forced us to sort of adapt and rethink, like what Cecilia said, how we should operate, how do we, work within this new normal. But I mean, other than COVID, if you think about it, it's not just COVID. The world around us has changed. I mean, 你想象我们10年前、15年前在实践的时候和现在的这个社会，我们现在的这些观众，这个新的 audience， 其实都跟我们那个年代的 audience 完全不一样。是你可以想象我们现在和未来的 audience， 他们就是一出生其实就是每人手上一个手机，然后每人一台电脑。我们以前就是 pager， 对他们来讲什么是 pager 对吧？什么是 CD， 什么是 tape， 所以就是一个很不一样的一个时代，很不一样的一个观众。So like what do you all think is in store? And I also think to myself, like, and because now I'm also not just I'm also in commercial in the commercial industry, entertainment industry, right? So even for myself, I think about what is the future, and how do we succeed in this future world? How do we connect to this like future audience? And what do we need to do differently from what we are doing currently, in order to still stay relevant? So what do you all think?
Let me just add on to what you say, Wendy, about how, 现在的, like when they're out there, they have a handphone in hand, mobile technology, everything in hand. It's very interesting. Let me share something with you. Because of this 55 years anniversary, we have to convert a lot of VHS tape, right? So I was asked to go and buy an adapter to convert to digital. So I went to a shop and I asked the lady, I said, do you have an adapter that you can convert a VHS tape to a digital? Then she asked me, what is a VHS tape? I was stunned for like 5 seconds. I was like, how am I explain this to you? And it never rang my bell that I should actually just Google and show her a photograph.
She texted me immediately. Am I a dinosaur?
So I don't know what to tell this girl. And she's very young. She's probably 20, even like 20, 23, 25. So I was trying to phrase my brain, said, okay, how do I describe? I don't even know how to describe VHS tape to her anymore because I was so stunned. I was like, okay, never mind, move on.
The black one, rectangle, then got two rotating.
I could have just shown her a picture, but somehow it just, because I was too shocked by the way she asked me, so I forgot everything. Then the next thing is, the game has to do with our archive, right? We have all this open reel tape that we need to transfer. So I was, searching and going around calling. And so again, I called this company and this girl said, what is an open reel tape? I was like, another shocking questions to me. I mean, she sounds really young as well. So I have to again explain to her, and after all the explanation, say, oh no, we don't do that kind of thing, fine. But it's very interesting that how, the younger actually don't know what this thing. But, like, to go back to what Lei Hong was mentioning before, you talk about innovate, re-innovate. And I think you never know, this old technology could be a new technology to them in the future. You never know, 10 years later, some director might be using VHS tape. Some company will probably be manufacturing a lot of, VHS tape machine, or hopefully somebody will even manufacture a lot of old machine to create new work. So it's not always it's not always about the technology, the high tech, making the new technology better and better and better. But instead, how about going back and use that to create a different kind of work? Yeah. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
But I think the VHS tape really stunned me. I still cannot forget. Nightmare.
I feel Bibi is a fan of the old school being the new school. It's the second time she has said it.
Yeah, I'm very honest. I'm a very old school person, but I will not, block I will not reject. I will still want to learn because I'm still kind of a high tech person. I'm get very interested with technology, but how far I want to go, I draw a line there. I have a limit because I like to balance it, the old and new. So.
I think
最年轻的人
I speak from a producer point of view. Okay, so if the world has changed and we are here to serve the world as whatever people in the arts, right? Then the subject may have changed, I feel. Okay, example lah. In the past, we may be talking about human stories that has got to do with, let's say, bullying in school. I think bullying in school is still a thing that still exists, right? But now, on top of that, there's bullying on the internet, on don't know what social media network, right? So there are more things to uncover and talk about, to address. But the way people receive information and want to talk about things is very different now. We need to think more about not just getting the audience to the theater or to our space. We need to go to their space even more. So, I mean, I guess it's a common thing when the country is very big. Because I think in countries where they are very big, they already have the practice of bringing the arts to the audience more readily, because you cannot travel out to access the arts, right? When it's very big and maybe in winter it's very cold. But in Singapore, we don't have a big country issue, but people are still not coming to the arts. So we want to bring the arts to the people. Yeah, and with people changing the way of like receiving information and accessing information, that will definitely impact the way we create lah. I feel. So that is the future, maybe. Hun, you look like you want to say something.
No, I think I wrote my note already. I think very hard the answer to this question. I think the future is world domination. It's world domination. Very simple, right? Because now we have all these virtual platforms, right? Shows that only audience in Singapore can watch is now available, can be available to the world.
Now the border is not quite the border anymore.
Yeah, the virtual, there's no virtual border, right? Like because of COVID, thanks COVID, no thanks COVID. I'm here today talking with you all, right? Beyond the geographical boundaries. So I mean the world is your oyster now, right? So one day, so flashback. One day Michelle Lim, who's one of the facilitators for the other programs, we were talking on virtually. And then I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Now I got no job. Theater is on break. Everybody is jobless. When is theater coming back? Because of the pandemic. And then Michelle said, Lei Hun, theater is never coming back. And I was like, what do you mean, right? So it stopped me in my track and pause and think again, right? What does Michelle mean when she says theater is not coming back? Theater is not coming back and shouldn't come back the way theater has been. Right, which brings me back to the beginning, what I said, right? So what are we going to bring to the as production manager myself? What am I going to bring to the table when theater comes back? What are the things that I want to do differently when theater comes back? Right. So I assume we've heard about this Black Lives Matter issues going on in America. To put it more relevant to me, right? Is all this anti-racism, anti-discrimination movement that I'm encountering and reading about in the recent months. So with the pandemic as well, we are very isolated. I try very hard to engage myself with my peers. So there's this weekly online meeting engagement with this group of production managers called the PMF. So what we do is we talk about, what we can do to make things more accessible, right? So, theater, a lot of us, we are college graduates, right? We have the privilege of, whether it's family or our financial background, to do theater. Because theater is not for profit. You're not going to become a millionaire doing theater. We do it because we love theater. We are passionate about what we do. So there are things that we talk about, like job postings, right? For example, if we are hiring a designer, or we're hiring a production manager, why does it have to say require a master in fine arts? You need to do Excel, you need to have good people skill, you need to understand the process of theater making. Do you need a MFA to be a production manager? Because by putting an MFA, a lot of potential candidates are eliminated from applying. So being more conscious about the way we do things, it's what I am working on, for when theater comes back. Yeah. I
think theater will come back.
We have a friend.
No, it will come back.
It will come back.
I will disagree with Michelle Lim on the fact that theater will not come back. Yeah, really. Because you think about it, if you think about it, then okay.
Sorry to the disclaimer is, sorry to interrupt, but I think what she's telling me is I needed that joke. I needed that joke because I was like, die la, no. And then listen, Lei Hun, theater is not coming back. But what she's saying, what she did was to make me stop and think. Theater is coming back, but do we, as practitioners, want theater to come back where you have 3 days of load-in, 1 day of tag, and to open the show on the 5th day? Yeah. So that's what I think I took it as, is that what you want? Do we not want to let people have, we don't have to work from 8 a.m. to midnight, right? For 2 weeks in a row. How can we change that? So I think that's how I took what Michelle Lim said. But please disagree. Give her a chance.
But just to disagree there for another point of view, right? If you think about it, we have been listening to music for a long time, right? We listen to music on CDs and so on and so forth. So then there's no reason to go to concerts already, right? But people still go to concerts. They go to concerts because of the live experience. You are also listening to the same music, but the experience of connection, human connection, is something that is not replaceable over Zoom, over Skype, whatever it is. There's still this very primal thing that people need to connect with each other. And for that basis, right, because of that, if you look at that as music as an example, then theater will survive. It's just how we come back only. But
maybe it's in a different form.
In a different form. But the fact that it is still people in the same space, sharing the same space, audience sharing the same space with performers, I think that is something that is not replaceable by any medium. Yeah. So I'm the eternal optimist in that sense. But yeah, we will come back, and we will come back with more tools now, right? With further tools, like now we are getting engaged using this kind of comms way of, Zoom, different ways of communication. But the fact is that at the end of the day, theater is talking about a narrative. There's a story to it. Where there's something that the creative team, the director wants to tell their audiences. So what the future holds in the sense is that I feel that we will need to consolidate all these new forms of technology, but at the same time not forget that at the end of the day we are telling a story. And if we lose sight of that, then theater is really not coming back. But if the fact is, because now we have more tools to engage the audience with, right? If we don't have something that we strongly want to tell the audience, that we strongly want to convey, then it becomes gimmicky. Everything becomes gimmicky. It's all packaging. and you lose the core of it. So the future, I feel, is that we'll have more tools at our disposal, but we need to be laser focused on the
No, I agree with Gabriel. That theater will come back, right? But I think the question for me is, how do I want to come back when theater comes back? And that is a question.
Yeah. I think for us in China, me and Wuxi, 我们都在中国现在，然后可能就是 I think also to the rest of the world, probably, for us in China, we are sort of, yes, COVID started from here, but then we have moved further, I guess, in terms of how to control the situation. And we originally, like, same as everywhere else, everything was shut down, restaurants were shut down, theaters were shut down, everything was shut down, everybody was like panicking and like staying at home. But now we are also, I guess, one of the first countries to sort of start to open up, and we are seeing how, and I know that a lot of other countries are also looking at China and how the market is reacting to the opening up, and whether there's any change in behavior and so on. So I feel like where I'm coming from and what I'm observing, and 我觉得吴曦可能等一下也可以补充，就是我觉得 looking at what we have, the reaction of the audience in China, the need to have live performance, the need to be in an environment where you are present and engaging with the message in front of you. I think it is innate need. It's just a human desire. It's a natural human desire to enjoy that kind of process. So I feel like no matter how far technology brings us and so on, I don't believe like we will ever be replaced by, everybody just wear a VR goggle and like Ready Player One, and then you just live in this virtual world. I don't believe that's going to happen. I hope that's not going to happen. And I don't see that happening in China, right? So for instance, like when Shanghai Disney first opened, 很夸张的, there was a news report of image of, the gates opening for the first time in like so many months. And then everyone was like running towards, into the theme park. And then there was this guy, obviously a very big fan of Disney, and he was like crying, as he's running into the theme park. Because I think there is a desire to connect in person, So in that sense, yes, the theater will come back. And I think, what we are seeing or witnessing right now in China, it is sort of showing that way that yes, it will be around for a long time. Don't worry, all of us will still have a job. But
I'm counting on it. Yeah.
I think coming back in a different form, because obviously we have to rethink, because it's not just the COVID. Like I said, it was also about the audience. How do we connect with the audience? Because right now the millennial kind of audience, they are very short attention span. I think everybody born after the 1990s all have ADHD, all very like, what's next, So, having someone sit there for like 2.5 hours, look at a show, for 2.5 hours and like be very patient, that might change. And yes, as creators, I think, and as practitioners and as producers, this is something that we do need to think about, because a theater without an audience is not really theater, right? As well. So it will change, but I think there is hope in theater, for sure. 吴曦呢，导演什么感触？未来剧场的未来，在我们这个新环境里面。
他因为刚才又扯疏远了，但是我的感觉觉得我觉得是就是将来就是如果你说从技术层面啊，从这些东西来谈的话，我觉得一定会是两极分化的。它技术的那一流会一直在往前走，然后但是我觉得现在其实有挺多的我认识的挺多朋友，他其实是反对技术上的一些创新的，包括对于一些新的设备、新的手段的运用。 我记得我前几天我还看了一出我朋友排的戏，他就基本上回归到一种最简单的方式之下，而且他特地不要用一些技术手段和一些新的手段在进行剧场的创作。其实这个分化其实现在挺严重的。对于我看到的情况来说，就是一方面我们在用很多最先进的东西在往前走，就好像我这样的人，我其实以前很讨厌电脑灯的，我很不喜欢这个东西，但是到这些年，哎呀，它逼得我已经迫使的我不得不使用它，因为实在太方便了，而且它可以把成本大大的降低下来。然后所以说，我觉得可能未来你朝技术方面走的一种趋势是不可避免的，但是一定还会有很多人他会继续停留在用一种最本初的一样的就是最质朴的一个方式在进行创作吧。我觉得这个分歧是一定会长期存在的。
好，我们的Cecilia 已经在提醒我们只剩下1分钟，所以我们需要 wrap up 了。然后呢，我也刚刚我们 call out to 豪后，他马上就 join 了我们，所以 hello，
你们要去看他留言给大家，他就是说无锡老爷您好，小凳子跟您请安了，他每次都这样。然后老板您好，这边有2位他的老板，然后另外是我了哈，那 BB 还有 Gabriel。
hello， 所以因为我们只有30秒哈，现在，所以现在很快的每个人只有5秒钟，give one keyword， what is the most important thing you feel to allow innovation or artistic creation or successful artistic creation？
你已经都说完了。
对呀。
我想说1个字。
我先讲的是比较容易的 ，right？记得初衷啊，最好的。Next one， 那个。
Next one， 快点 Q。
Say one word, why so long？
啊，初衷呢，我老伟 ，I don't know。
初衷也是2个字啊。
Oh my god！
我们要被屏蔽了。
我觉得疯狂吧，是疯狂的状态。
疯狂的状态是。好。
I want to say, enjoy what you're doing. If once you enjoy what you're doing, nothing become, it's not work anymore. So you have to enjoy.
Yep.
大家都讲完了，够了。
都讲完了。BB 完了。BB has frozen again.
I said already.
What do you say?
I said, be open-minded and learn to accept, what was given to you.
Okay.
OK， 好，
现在你聊。
就你啊。
Dare to dream， 干了。
对，所以其实最根本的爱和 innovation 是没有区别的。所以我觉得我们一直是不断的 innovate。TTP 从一开始在成立 practice 的时候，它其实就是在它的那个年代，它是很 innovative 的一个决定。然后我知道郭生也讲说，我们开始的时候也不知道有谁知道说认为我们可以活下来，可是我们就是在摸索当中就这样子过了55年。我觉得接下来 TTP 还是会有另外的55年，很多的55年，所以我们大家一起加油。
好，谢谢大家参与。Happy 55 Thank you for being with us. Yeah, we'll keep in touch somehow, somewhere online.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.